Welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. We're going to start it off by talking about NFL and the weekends this past game. So anyone want to start us off?
All right, we'll start about Saints, Cowboys. What's going on with the Saints? What's going on with the Cowboys?
The Saints looked awful.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
They don't play any defense.
No,
at all.
And you expect Rob Ryan went in there from the Cowboys.
Yeah.
They have a good defensive line. They grabbed Jarris Byrd, paid him too much money.
Yeah.
What's the problem? There's no defense here. You can't even keep up with the Cowboys.
Well, they lost Malcolm Jenkins. You know, he's on the Eagles now, so that hurts the defense.
Killing it on the
Then they
Eagles.
lost Darren Sproles. He was their engine that go, I guess.
Again, killing on the Eagles.
Yeah, but those guys are going, and I feel like the team is just on a downgrade. They're expecting Drew Brees to outscore everybody. They're not playing any defense. Rob Ryan is not getting the job done right now.
I mean, that's what you've seen in Saints years past. I mean, they're just going to outscore you. They're going to throw it. You really don't see a run game. Mark Ingram was injured, but they still have something. I mean, they have Kyrie Robinson. They have
Jimmy Graham.
Jimmy Graham, can't forget about him.
Marcus Colston.
Who's the new guy they just drafted right out of Oregon State? Brandon Cooks. They got Brandon Cooks, who's a speedster. I mean, you see that week in and week out. He can definitely space the field. It's confusing to me why Drew Brees can throw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns and still not even keep up with Cowboys.
I don't think anyone would have beat Baltimore on Sunday.
No.
Let alone the Carolina Panthers. Steve Smith, you know, he got cut by them basically.
Made
Kicked
it on
them
a
out the
mission.
door. Yeah, and he was on a mission. He was out for blood since they cut him. And that game was huge. And then they were getting to Cam Newton, getting hits on him, and he's already banged up. He has young receivers. D'Angelo Williams is hurt. Carolina's looking bad right now.
Yeah, that running back
Yeah.
core is hurt. Week to week, D'Angelo Williams just hurt himself again.
Yeah.
Their only receiver is Kelvin Benjamin, who's not the best route runner. But what do you expect from Cam Newton? Not even now, but in this future of him.
I mean, I think he, like you said it, great, Chris. He's just getting beaten down
Yeah.
game after game after
He's playing with
game.
broken
and,
ribs.
To be able to go in there and he's not 100%. He's not playing the Cam Newton that we know from the beginning, and I think that is definitely hurting the Carolina team. So.
And the one thing about Cam Newton, you always can see, he puts a lot of zip on the ball, but that zip is not there. A lot of passes are behind receivers, they're too low or they're too high. I mean, he's out there with a bandage on his hand, and it's getting worse, it looks like. I feel like he needs to really get himself on the sidelines, get himself together, and come back 100%, because being out there, not being Cam Newton, Superman,
So he's not being Superman.
It's not helping Carolina.
No. Speaking of quarterbacks having issues, Geno Smith. I mean, what's the issue there?
I mean, Geno is week to week, just like the NFC South.
Everyone, I feel like
it's week to week, man. I don't know if the preparations are getting messed up or whatever, but
do you really think it's the preparations? You don't think it's him as a player? You don't think it's him, the offense?
I mean, if it's week to week, it has to be you as a player.
Yeah.
Like, that's a head game. I think it's a mental thing.
Because
But when has he had a good week? Like,
Green
when
Bay, he put up
Green
28
Bay.
points, and the defense gave up the rest.
But it's the Green Bay defense. I mean, they were able to stop the Bears this week, but it was a Green Bay defense. You've Clinton Dix at safety, but other than that, I mean, the defense is old. They're not known for their defense as of late.
But you know what? It's a team sport, and it kind of we discussed it earlier with Hackenberg that he can't be the only team player, and I think that from offensive to defensive line, if you guys aren't all in sync and if the team isn't put together and stuff, you can't depend on Cam Newton. You can't depend on these guys to carry your team.
And then another thing with Geno, they have Chris Ivory and Chris Johnson. Those guys aren't producing. They aren't getting any carries, they aren't getting any yards. They're putting everything on Geno's shoulder. And then on top of that, he's the quarterback, he has to worry about that. Then he has Michael Vick behind him. They're calling for him now. I mean, it's a lot of pressure on the guy.
So he responded to some of the fans that called him out while walking the locker room. I mean, what do you think of that? I mean, he obviously, it was all heat of the moment. The emotions got the best of him. Obviously, he's only 22, 23 years old. It's understandable. But I mean, do you think his job is on the line?
I mean, it has to be, especially with a semi-proven quarterback behind you.
Yeah, in this league, you prove yourself with wins.
Yeah.
He's not getting them. But
that's all that matters, wins and losses.
A few years ago, it wasn't like this in the NFL. I mean, you wait for 5 years before you get a look at Aaron Rodgers. Sat behind Brett Favre.
But now it's
a win-now league.
Yeah, it comes down to if you're not going to do the job, we have someone else to do it. So why am I going to risk putting you in when I could sit you on the bench and light a fire under your butt, and hopefully that will make you play better. And if the younger guy's doing better than you, it's not just you walk in here and you're king and you get to play.
Piggybacking piggybacking off of that, I think a fire needs to be lit under Nick Foles.
Absolutely.
Because this guy, if he throws the ball past 20 yards, it's wobbly, it's high or it's low. He's not completing passes, and guys are open. And another thing goes on Chip Kelly. He needs to run the ball. LaShawn McCoy, I mean, he's shady, but he needs to learn to go north and south. East and west isn't working.
Well, I'm taking that point and what Maddie said earlier with Hackenberg, I think it's the same situation. I mean, if you look, their statistics from this weekend are oddly similar.
Yeah.
They both had
Yeah,
picks.
that's true.
Both were incomplete. I think Foles threw for over 40 times and was about 50%. It's not a matter of this run game. I mean, Chip's play calling could be better. He gave up on the run game. But screen passes. I mean, I complained earlier that there were too many screen passes for Penn State. There weren't enough for the Eagles. You give the ball to Shady or Sproles in space and see what they can do with it. They gave up on the run a little early. I think they had 17 rushes, but for only like 25 yards. It's really upsetting because Shady is one of the best runners in the league of our generation, and he's no offensive line right now. They're banged up. Jason Peters is playing. Thank goodness for the Eagles that Lane Johnson is getting off suspension from PED use this week, so that offensive line and that left tackle spot will be right there for him. But I mean, it's really upsetting because it was such a high-octane offense, and this past weekend they put up 21 points, all of special teams and defense. And it kind of goes off to Howie Roseman in this offseason because all of the players that made plays this weekend were picked up on the offseason. Malcolm Jenkins from the Saints.
Brad Smith.
Marigoy, who actually got the block, picked up in the offseason. So,
Well, on that note, we'll be right back with Penn State Sports Night.
That's low.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. Stop the texts. Stop the wrecks. Visit us at stoptextsstopwrecks.org.
Cook foods to the right temperature using a food thermometer. 3,000 Americans will die from food poisoning this year. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
Welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. It's now time for our over-under segment. So I'll get us started, guys. Over or under Penn State with 8 wins this season?
Going off this weekend, I'm going to go under.
I'm going over because, I didn't have them losing to Northwestern, but I can supplement one of the other losses in there.
Okay.
I'm not really sure. This is a very hard topic because James Franklin is a new coach. He also keeps saying that he'll fix things, but we're not really sure what he means by that. And especially after this weekend, I think I'm going to say over just to bring confidence.
Okay, now to my over-under, I'm going to say over-under 10 wins for the Eagles.
I'm going to say over because before the season I went through the schedule, high expectations obviously, but I had them at 10 wins with a loss to the Colts.
I'm going to have to say under with that one, especially after I feel like every game they've played, they've won by chance.
By luck.
By luck. Excuse me, by
I'm going to
luck.
have to agree. I think under. I just think that, this past weekend's performance, just not really too convincing that they're going to keep on winning, so I'm going to say under.
Okay, so the Raiders are 0-4. They're 8-28 with Dennis Allen as their head coach. Over under a week from today, because today this is their bye week. Over under a week before he gets fired.
A week is such a short amount of time. I'm going to have to say under for that one.
I'm going to say over. I think he'll be there for more than a week. I think that I don't know, to me 1 week is like maybe give him a talking to and kind of flag him like, you got one more game, buddy, and then we'll reevaluate. I just don't think that they're going to pull the trigger.
I'm going to say over strictly because it's the Oakland Raiders and no one truly expects anything from them anyway.
Oh, that's a great way to end it. Okay, and then here's my over-under. Penn State beating Ohio State. Over or under?
I'm going to have to go with over. I think that Franklin, I believe that he is going to get stuff together and fix things hopefully. And it's going to be a tough game. It's not going to be a walk in the park, and I think it all depends on what happens this coming week with our bye, what training we do, and I definitely think a win or a lose against Michigan is going to be a huge factor in what we do in the Ohio State game.
I'm going to go under and say they will lose despite not having Braxton Miller. Penn State will not beat Ohio State.
Yeah, I'm definitely going under. No, doesn't matter. Braxton Miller, defense. Penn State is getting crushed by Northwestern, not beating Ohio State.
Okay.
Well, that wraps it up for this week's edition of Penn State Sports Night. From Sam Mancuso, Maxwell Massey, Chris Gamble, I'm Madeline Shutt. Have a great week.